All right, welcome everybody to another CFS virtual roundtable. Today we'll be discussing Portrait of a Lady on Fire, just to honor Pride Month, and we're going to be discussing more movies that will relate to the LGBTQ plus stories. And yeah, so today is Portrait of a Lady on Fire, and I'll give a little description about it. So this is set in France, 1770. And starring Marianne, a painter, is commissioned to do the wedding portrait of Eloise, a young woman who has just left the convent. Eloise is a reluctant bride-to-be, and Marianne must paint her without her knowing. She observes her day by day to paint her secretly. All right, so that's just a little description about it. I will do introductions as well. So I'm Beatrice, the CEO of the CFS Carleton Film Society, going into my third year in the Media Production and Design program. And I'm Stephanie.
Awesome. So hi, I'm Steph, and I'm a now fourth year student in film studies and communications and media studies. I'm part of the Carleton Film Society, helping out with events and stuff like what we are doing right now, and I'm really excited to talk about this film. So we have a guest today. So introduce yourself, John.
Hey everybody, I'm John. I'm also in communication and media and film studies. I'm just starting my fourth year next semester, and I'm so excited to be here. And I love this movie, so let's get chatting.
That's great. I can't believe we never met before this, but we're in the same programs. And we're in the same, you know what I mean, whatever. We're in the same program, same year. We never met. It's what it is. It's a big university. It's what it is. Awesome.
We're brought together by the screens.
Exactly. So we're going to get into the spoiler section. So if you haven't watched the film, leave and watch it. Then you can come back and listen to our discussion. So that was your last chance. And first off, Beatrice, tell me your first thoughts about the film.
Yeah, so I saw this a while ago. I was just talking about it with you guys before. I saw it at the same time around Parasite. It was 2019, I guess. And I loved the movie. It was a great, the whole movie was built on the tension. Céline Sciamma, the director of it, did such an amazing job of building that tension just through like quiet moments, or those glances or touches. It's very subtle, but it's it really builds up. And then that ending in the film was it just made the whole film even better. It just came all together. But yeah, I loved it. I thought it should have been nominated, or if they didn't nominate in the Oscars for best international film, but would have been very fitting for them to win that. But that was my first thoughts about it.
All right, what about you, John?
Well, me. At first, I didn't think I was going to get so into this movie, but it just drew me in right off the bat. Yeah, I just fell in love with the cinematography and the lighting specifically. It was almost like the whole film was a a painting of its own, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It was beautiful. It really was.
That's really true. That's really well said. A portrait of it is a portrait in itself. It's true. Yeah, for me, we were just looking for LGBTQ plus stories before entering this, and I was like, you know what? I'll go through Google, and I found this one, and I was like, you know what? This looks really good. Oh, my cat is playing around. I don't know if you heard that, but she just made something fall. Anyways, so I saw this movie and I was like, you know what? Let's talk about this one. So I watched it yesterday and I fell in love with it. I thought it was brilliant. And step by step, when we get to know more of each character, it builds a tension, as Beatrice was saying, and it just, I don't know, there's something magical about this film. There's something just so beautiful, and you don't really expect them necessarily to enter in a relationship with one another, but it's because of the tension that's been growing and growing for so long. It's it's inevitable, and it's at the end, at some point in the film, I was like, okay, are they going to end up together or not? What's going to happen? Is it just going to be a cliffhanger? We never know. And then finally, when they kissed, it was just so beautiful, and oh wow, I loved it so much, and I love the characters. I love everything about it. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Awesome. I loved it. Yeah.
Really, the suspense leading up to that kiss was oh my gosh, you're just watching them closer and closer get together in each two shot. I found
Exactly.
yeah, it was really built up slowly, and it was such a payoff for sure.
It was. It was.
After this movie, I like started on this like Céline Sciamma like marathon. I started watching more of her films as a director, and it's like I've seen also like Water Lilies and Tomboy. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but I think like I can like see like her directing style is very much similar to like everything was just very spoken with like the glances and like the touch instead of the dialogue. So I think that was like shown through like her directing style, but that's what like I've noticed the most had come out of this film.
Yeah, you're right. It was very quiet. At least I think for like the first 20 minutes, there's like no one really talking. There's like little to no dialogue, and it's like I was like, oh wow, this is like different. And there's almost no music throughout the whole film as well. It's very quiet, and I think that's what really makes you build that kind of bond with the characters and really listen and observe. I mean, I've never observed characters and like their hands and their facial expressions as much as this film, because that's what the main character was doing. She was observing every single thing about Eloise, and she was observing, her hand position, what they look like, and trying to memorize that to draw that later on and put that on the canvas. And I thought that really allowed the viewer to do it also by themselves. I mean, I think the only song that's in there is at the end, and also like when they're singing around the campfire, but there's almost no other music throughout the rest of the movie, which I think really is really fitting, and I loved it. Was that like something noticeable to you, John?
To me, for sure, especially during the times, like it's such a valuable moment to listen to music. Like when they both sat in front of I don't know if it's a piano. It's definitely has another name, but when Marianne was playing for her and she started to like fall in love with her, I thought that was really magical, and it was kind of cute too because she was getting nervous about it, but really she could be getting nervous about doing that painting. Instead of just playing a tune, it's low stakes.
Yeah, I saw like it was mentioned like this basically has like no soundtrack at all in this film. It's all very diegetic sounds, and I even like saw an interview of the director how she had to pace them with their steps. So it's kind of like she's like orchestrating the sounds and like in this film. So she was saying like, okay, 4 steps to go here, and then you have to take the 1 step and then you kiss. So it's very like tedious in that way that she had to every single sound she had to plan it out. So there's like also the emphasis on like silence, I think, like when they're talking, and the emphasis of like their words, since there's not really like any sound effects, they had to like pause at certain moments, and that's when like it hits, and that's how she like they like are serious about some stuff. So it's very interesting how they like had to practice that in order to, when you have no sound, it's very much in the dialogue.
Yeah, and in the silence because it's very quiet. But I think like just the ending when it's revealed that she finally goes to see an orchestra, and Eloise finally goes to see an orchestra, and she sees her for at least what we know of as a final time, and it was just, I don't know, like just seeing her cry and listening to that music. Like there's 2 options of what she might have felt. Like did she think about was Marianne her name?
Yeah, they're in the red, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the red. Yeah, Marianne. Like she was thinking about Marianne, or was she thinking about just the experience of the orchestra in general and how she, never experiencing that and experiencing that feeling for the first time? And I mean, I understand because I love orchestra music, and being around that kind of music and around that kind of atmosphere, it's nothing like just listening to it in your ears. And I mean, she didn't even have that option either. So just I feel like I'm like, wow, like I was trying to think like, is she feeling that way? She's feeling sad. Is she feeling happy? Like she's having so many different emotions. But I'm like, I had to question, was it because of her feelings with Marianne, or is it Marianne? You see, I'm bad with names. You'll see this with this series. I'm terrible with names of characters. Or was it with like just her interaction with music? So what are your thoughts about that? Like, do you think there's another reason why she felt different emotions? What do you think that all meant, this final scene?
I think I think like the orchestra brings out so much emotion, and like we said, like the silence is so important in film, especially because you can't listen to music unless you're making music back in those days. I'm sure she was just bottling it all up to like the last second, and same with us almost. Watching Marianne and trying to find her like get back into contact with her after such a long time, especially after seeing that painting of her and the child. Thought that was devastating, but kind of sweet at the same time, because she had that finger on that page, like 80 something, where, that's another beautiful thing that I think we take for granted. Like music, we get to listen to it all the time, but also photos of like our loved ones. I found that they really have to paint it, and that's like, it takes an artist to do that, to really capture like the essence of someone. And so that makes every single photo so much more valuable. And it just adds to the build, adds to that tension, going up to that last scene. I really love this movie. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I think this film is very much like a I don't know what the word is, but it talks like about a lot about arts. It's like you have the music and you have painting, but there's also like literature. So I think like with the very last scene with the orchestra, I think it's also relating back to the story of the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice. And I think I saw like a comment where at the end of the film, so like the whole story is that Eurydice got bit, she's dead, and now Orpheus is trying to bring her back. And so all he has to do is walk up and just make sure that if he walks up without looking back, then he'll be reunited with his love, but he ends up turning around. And I think at the very end, there was a comment that Eloise, who's like crying at the end, she actually like knows that Marianne is there. Like she can feel her looking at her, but I think she chose the lover's choice, which is to not look back and to just to like focus on the orchestra instead of like looking back. So Marianne like did the poet's choice, which was at that scene when they said goodbye, she like turn around, so she turns around. So that comment like also like it hit harder after hearing about that, but I think that was beautiful. Yeah.
Wow, I never thought of it that way. I really didn't, and I'm glad you brought that up, because it does make sense. And like, how Eloise was saying, like it was stupid to choose the poet's choice. It was like a bad decision, and that's kind of like what she's falling into. She's falling into that decision, if it is true that she knows that Marianne is there. So wow, that I never thought of it that way. But anyways, another thing about the movie that really stuck out to me is the woman representation. So the way that we're following these 4 women throughout this film, and that they all have a struggle with being a woman in some way. They're all limited by their own world. So what I mean by that is, like, for example, we have Eloise, where she's limited, that she can't choose who to marry. She has to marry this man that she doesn't know. And then we have Marianne, where she's a painter, and she can't even paint men or nudes or whatever, because she's a woman. So she's limited by her own world. So she's limited to be a real artist, as what people would call in that time, at least. And then we have is it Sophie? I think that was her name. I think she's like the servant girl. I don't remember.
I think so.
Whichever. So she's trapped by being a woman in a way that she gets pregnant and she doesn't want a baby, and she just wants to get rid of it so that she doesn't live with that kind of shame and that kind of the life that she doesn't want, right? So she has to go through all this this process and this embarrassment and this kind of like shameful way of losing a child while forcing a miscarriage in some way while being next to a baby. So she's forced into this kind of world without ever wanting to. And then we even have the mother of Eloise, which her as well, she's kind of trapped with her daughter that presumably killed herself. And that she lost her husband as well, and that all she wants is to go back to Italy. So she does everything in her power to have her daughter marry someone in Italy so that she can return back to her home and feel whole again, because she feels this sort of void. So like they're all kind of like subject to their times. They're all subjected to being they're limited by being a woman, basically. And I think that it's really pretty beautiful how like all these stories kind of connect in such different ways, but they all kind of feel the same way. I don't know how to explain it better than that, but it's like they all connect in some way without even having the same topic of thing that they struggle with. It all comes down to being limited by being a woman. And I think that I think that's what the movie's about, really. I think it's about woman representation and how, there's still these struggles here today, and maybe it's not to that extent here, but I mean, there's still limitations just in the film industry, for example, where women don't have as much access and as much power in the film industry than men, for example. So it really brought up all of these ideas, and I think that it was really, really powerful. And I mean, even the Eloise and Marianne, they're subjected to their time in a way that they can't be together because it's not seen, because it's not done, and it's not accepted in the world that they're in. And so I think that I don't know, all of these themes were just so relevant and so powerful, even to this day, at least for me. So what do you think, Jon, about that?
I love that you brought up limitations, even though it's very sad. These obligations that they all face. I find that it really speaks to the theme of the male gaze, because in my view, that is such a limitation at the same time. And I thought this film was a huge commentary on the male gaze. And usually, they would subvert the male gaze, and it would be the opposite, or something like that. But here it was truly a commentary. Because we talked about the last scene, I felt that maybe Eloise didn't notice that Marianne was trying to get her attention. And I thought, because we shared the POV for Marianne, we were staring at her, and we had all this tension built up, and we finally had this last chance to potentially get them to see each other for one last time. And while we're staring at her in an intense close-up, usually it would be reversed in that way, but here, we're just begging for her to like break the fourth wall and stare at us and go, just to get her to chill, because that's all it would take for her, is to one last glance at her lover. It was so like heart-wrenching. So yeah, it was like, to me, that's like, instead of a nice close-up on someone for to break the narration, here it was what you're asking for, like what the audience needed, but we didn't get it, so it was so frustrating at the same time. But not only that, what do you guys think? Do you see any other connections with the male gaze, and how that was either subverted or?
Yeah, I was thinking like the male gaze. Now we have like the female gaze, which is like, that's why we need like women as like for directors and for directing like kinds of films, because now you can see like from their point of view how they would see the world, instead of like from your male like heterosexual view. But like, I think that's like also the whole idea of the artist and the muse, and how they would see each other, because you go from Eloise is like this object that Marianne just has to paint, and she's just like looking at her features and nothing more. But then as you go throughout the film, you get to know each other more, and she's starting to become this person. So now, instead of like that cold, not much feeling portrait that she had for the first time, that she had to like erase and like start over again, you can see more of like Eloise's like her character in that. Like, she's more than just like this pretty face that she's trying to marry off to this man. So yeah, I think like, the female gaze was like very important when you're being an artist and you're trying to show you different sides of yourself. So you have all these different portraits throughout the film. So yeah, so I think it's very important.
I'm glad you brought the male gaze up too, because I mean, there's two instances that these are played with, and the first is nudity. The nudity in this film it's not looked upon as sexual or anything like that. It's just looked on as it's just a body. And at the beginning, when she's just drying her clothes and smoking a pipe in naked, it seems just like natural that she's just like drying her clothes. It's what it is, right? But it's not trying to put the woman in some sort of position to be looked at in some way. And I thought that was really well done. And even in the more intimate scenes, it wasn't meant to be like looked at in that sort of way. And I thought it was really well played with. And even when Eloise places the mirror around her crotch too, so that Marianne can do a self-portrait of herself. I mean, even then, it's still playing around that male gaze of like, it's still not showing you what you want to see. It disappoints the male gaze, and I thought that was brilliant. And the other thing that it plays with is that the portraits itself, right? So in this time, it was very common for portraits to be done of women, and that they would give it to the presumed husband, and he would decide if she looks good or not to marry or not. That was his choice. That was his choice to decide if she looked good enough, right? And it's saddening to see that this is the kind of power of the male gaze in such a. It's just saddening that even in this film and even through this time that this is what happened. And I'm not just saying this because I watched this film, like this from art history courses. This was something that was very common, and it's unfortunate that that's the male gaze was even used then at such an early period of time with, painting and imagery. And yeah, I think it was just so well played through so many different ways, and I loved it. So yeah, anything else that about this that you'd like to discuss?
Yeah, I think like even with Hollywood, like, sex, it just sells more films that way. So I think I love that it's just like it cuts it and you just fill in the pieces for yourself. You don't need to like go in depth and then use that in a trailer to just sell this movie. So I think in that way it's like, okay, we don't need to see that. It was like, okay, we get the idea. So I like that they didn't have to like go into that.
Absolutely. Yeah, sparking the imagination is definitely going to go way further than blatantly throwing it out there. That's why I like that juxtaposition of the the crotch mirror, because as we're all staring there as males, there's her face right there, and it's like, hey, this is not about you, right? Yeah, I truly, one thing that stood out to me was when Héloïse was being painted, and they were somewhat like kind of already in with it at that point with each other. But Héloïse said, if you're looking at me, then who do I look at? And that's like exactly what we're talking about here. Like this is what stops that flow of narration. It cuts the story when you just pause the story to stare. And that's why she couldn't smile. She couldn't be comfortable being painted precisely for that reason. And so that really stood out to me.
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
Exactly.
There's also another instance that, at least for me, I was like a little bit like struck by, and it was like, I think it's like when they're trying this sort of like herb or drug or something, and like they rub it against like their armpit or something, but like there's like a close-up shot, and I was like, oh my god, am I looking at like a crotch or something? Like I was like, am I looking at like what I don't? I mean, am I looking at what I think I'm looking at? But then it's like it zooms out, and it's like it's not. So it disappoints what we want to see. And I thought that was really brilliantly done. Like we were saying, it was playing with the male gaze 100%. So I'm really happy that was put into the movie as well. I mean, everything about this one was excellent. Honestly, I don't have any bad things to say about it.
Even the artist that they found, like the painter for all the portraits they had to make for the film. I think the director had to find someone, and I think her name was Hélène Delmer. And so she has this series of like portraits that she has where she smudges out the eyes of all the people in it. And I think it was like there's like commentary on like rejecting the gaze. So now the Criterion Collection DVD, the poster that's how she created the poster of Héloïse, and she smudges it out. So I really like that they included that. And like, yeah, it was crazy. She had to like make 6 different pieces for the film because they kept like, having to burn it, smudging it, So she had like spent like 3 months having to create all that, but it turned out great.
Yeah, I'm so impressed by just the way that people paint in general. Like, I wish I had this kind of talent, and just watching how the light and shadows play with colors in paint, and I'm like, I can't see that, like I feel like it's so impressive. People that paint and that can see these kinds of things, that can see where the light and shadow works with the colors. I'm like, wow, that's such a talent. That's an incredible talent. I mean, I don't know how they do it.
Have you seen I think you've mentioned Ammonite, but have you seen the film or?
No, but I want to see it. I really want to see it. But I'm gonna
your guys' opinion, because like most of these films, like with the queer stories, there's like the whole criticism of it's either a period piece or there's either a large age gap. So this one is, I guess, like a period piece, and instead of having like more modern stories. So how do you like feel like for having a balance between the two, or you think if it's a good story, it's a good story, or? What were your opinions?
I never even thought of that, but it's true. Like, Call Me by Your Name is like a
the whole
age gap and
you have like
period piece. I mean, then again, you have like Love, Simon. I know that's like a super cheesy one, but like in the half of it, and I mean, there's so many that are just also like teen movies, right? And even though they're super cheesy and super, what it is, it's what it is, but it still doesn't just tell those period pieces. But I mean, yeah, maybe there needs to be more like a representation of LGBTQ stories that are not necessarily period pieces or what is the other word or a strong age gap. But at the same time, I see there's Supernova, which is like super underrated for this amazing film, and that came out at the beginning of this year. It's an excellent movie. About it's a gay couple, and one of them has Alzheimer's, and he struggles with having that. So it's just about male couple going through life and going through that kind of struggle. And I feel like an LGBTQ story shouldn't just be about the LGBTQ story. In my opinion, it should be much more. It should be much more than that. It should be telling just a story about life in general and the struggles that you go through it. Like, this story is not just about a portrait of a lady on fire. I mean, it's not just about the relationship that they have between each other. It's the limitations. And I think that's what the main theme and the main importance. It's also about the male gaze. So when I think about making an LGBTQ story movie, it needs to be more than just that. And I think that's what people need to keep in mind when they're creating these kinds of films. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. The theme and the genre can't just be all about that. That helps with the normalization of everything, just the representation in general, just having it included in everybody else's stories, all the stories you want to see, but not just heteronormative. Totally.
And if write that Supernova down, I need to watch that now. Like, I haven't seen it. Yeah, I need to get to it.
It's excellent. It's a little bit boring, but it's okay. It's a good boring.
Good boring.
Right on. I haven't watched it either. I'm down for it.
Good. Is there anything else, any other themes that really stood out to you, or any other things that really you enjoyed? At least for me, the cinematography was just excellent. I just wanted to be on that island. I mean, okay, wait, we have to talk about this. Okay, I found something. Why was she on fire? Like, what do you guys think about that? Like, what did you think that meaning? I was like, why is she not taking out the fire off of her? Like, what do you guys think is the meaning of all that?
It's to me, maybe I think it's let's say you're making a documentary. Sometimes ethically you have to intervene when something bad happens. But as an artist, I'm sure she just saw that and she's going, "Wow, look at the art! Look at the beauty of this!" Before realizing, "Oh crap, we gotta put her out." Maybe that's what it was. Or you could say the burning passion that was building up between them, and that was seen with the visual metaphor of the painting burning. It was burning at her heart, and I was like, "Hey, it is burning at her heart." I agree.
Honestly, yeah, I was gonna think the same. I didn't really think much of the fire, but like, it could be that at the campfire, it could be like that tension that was just there, that they were so tense and focused about each other that they didn't even bother to think about the fire. That's how tense it was, and the tension building for that. But I think that's all I could think about the fire for that one.
Yeah, I was asking because I don't know. I have no idea. I was asking you guys, I was like, maybe you guys have a wise idea about this because you both have wise ideas throughout this whole thing. But yeah, I have no clue. I just think it was a beautiful scene. I love the singing in that part. I love the just the intimacy of that they have between one another. But it's like there's this tension, and then you feel like they're gonna kiss in the scene, but they're not because it's just like a wrong timing. And yeah, I just thought it was brilliant. It was brilliant. Anyways, I think we all have really great comments about this film. So yeah, is there anything else you guys wanted to bring up for your final thoughts?
Conversation.
Yeah, I just loved it. Loved the movie. It's great.
Loved it as well. So I'm really glad that we all enjoyed it. It's fun when there's like polarizing ideas, but I'm sure we're gonna have polarizing ideas for the next one. So the next one will be a Moonlight in 2 weeks. So celebrating another LGBTQ+ story for Pride Month. So make sure to join us then We're very excited to talk about this one, but I'm telling you, you're going to hear polarizing ideas and polarizing thoughts about this one, so you don't want to miss it. All right, so thank you so much for joining us now, and you can always send us a comment or a message about what you thought about the film, and we'll make sure to discuss it with you. All right, thank you for making it here. Bye.
Thanks for having me. This is so great.
Oh, sorry, I should have let you say that. All right, bye, everyone.